Everyone, welcome to Pit Stops at Podium, the Rev Partners podcast, where we talk to execs who competed and won, taking their companies from high growth to high scale. My name is Brendan Tollison. I am the co-founder and CEO of Rev Partners, and I'm delighted to have with me today Allison Eman, CEO of Venture Atlanta. Welcome, Allison.
Thank you, Brendan.
Allison, this one's gonna be fun for me. I've been fortunate to go to Venture Atlanta a few times, but for those who aren't familiar with Venture Atlanta, since you are the originator and running the program, how about you give our audience a little bit of perspective on who Venture Atlanta is?
Sure. Venture Atlanta's been around for 15 years, believe it or not. So I was hired 15 years ago by the founders, which were the Metro Atlanta Chamber, the Technology Association of Georgia, and the Atlanta CEO Council. And the impetus of it was to basically bring more capital to Georgia. So at that point, 15 years ago, we had a handful of funds and, a tech community that was building and growing, but still pretty young. And the goal was to put a world-class, venture capital conference in Georgia. Fast forward 15 years, we have done just that, but we've expanded outside of Georgia. We are now the biggest conference really on the East Coast. We cover the whole Southeast. That's really the companies that we support, but it's an opportunity for funders and founders to connect. And that's really our main goal.
I love it. Yeah, it's been pretty amazing to see what you and the team have been able to create with Venture Atlanta. To your point, it's no longer just Atlanta, but it's the entire Southeast and really the East Coast relative to other events. So really exciting momentum. We'll get into that in a second with our big idea, but we do have a tradition here at Pit Stops at Podium, and that's to get to know our guests outside of what they do. So Allison, what are 3 fun facts that our audience should know about you?
I love to cook. I'm a total foodie, so I absolutely love to cook. I love to find recipes. I'm obsessed with going to cooking classes, that kind of thing. I think if I could become a chef in my next life, I would. So love that. Really the pandemic became very into hiking. Never was an outdoorsy type person, but have loved seeing what hikes I can do and go from there. I have 2 dogs that I love more than life. And I never had dogs or animals growing up. So, have all of a sudden become a big dog person. So
that's great. Yeah, I was going to say, it's probably not interesting, but our family got very into hiking during COVID. And I was going to say that we share that in common, but I'm sure most people picked that up during COVID as well.
Oh my God. Like all of a sudden I was every single week. I mean, I literally, the big thing was I went to a store and spent $150 on Solomon hiking shoes. And at that point I went, what am I doing? Oh my God, I just bought hiking shoes. So that was fun.
And what's your favorite thing to cook?
Oh my goodness. I'm a very good baker. So, I'm going to have dinner with my parents tomorrow night. My dad said, can you please make your Oreo cheesecake? So I just happen to be pretty good at desserts, and my family just, they always request, what the little things mom makes. So it's fun.
That's great. Well, I appreciate you sharing a little bit more about who you are. It's always fun to get to know our guests beyond just what they do during the day for work. But Allison, let's transition into the big idea. And I think it's pretty relevant because at this time of the year, it seems like it's event season. And so you have all these events happening. And you talked a little bit about who Venture Atlanta is. I think this is great for our audience, aspiring entrepreneurs or those CEOs that are looking to raise capital. These type of events, whether it's a SaaStr, a TechCrunch, or Venture Atlanta, these become great, vehicles by which to connect, to your point, entrepreneurs to VC. Right. And so let's talk a little bit about what's the importance of these events and the importance of finding your community and why they really exist. So let's get that kind of context for our audience of why these are around. And then we'll talk a little bit about what Venture Atlanta is designed to do.
Yeah, sure. So, one of the big things I saw was the need for the event post-pandemic, right? So, during the pandemic, we had a virtual model, and while it worked, the thing that everyone was missing was the connections, was being in the same room with people, was being face to face, was shaking someone's hand and, rubbing elbows and having lunch with people. And also those serendipitous meetings where you just ran into someone, it was like, God, I haven't seen you in so long. And on the computer, you didn't really see that. So the relevance, I think, of all events really kind of circled back and really came came to the core after the pandemic. But, what people have always loved about Venture Atlanta truly is the networking. So people will say, I can check off 20 lunches in 2 months at Venture Atlanta just by having, by buying that one ticket. And it's just, there's so much energy in the room, and aspiring entrepreneurs and people that are ready to, be that next big Cabbage and Roadie and Park Mobile, who, by the way, have all been on our stage, So, there's some amazing companies that have grown from 2 founders to, thousands, that started at Venture Atlanta. So it's really just a great place for people to connect, for people to possibly, and hopefully get funding. And, perhaps meet the lawyer they need, the accountant they need, the commercial real estate folks they need. So, we're a nonprofit, so we need all the support we could get.
That's great. And it reminds me, we had Aaron Hurst, who runs EO, and he talked a lot about David Cummings and the impact that he's had. So David Cummings starting Pardot, and then really wanting to give back to the technology community, and really that multiplier effect that's occurred as a result of just his influence in the technology scene. And it seems there are a lot of parallels to what Venture Atlanta has been able to create. And you already just mentioned some of the alumni. But Allison, let's dig in a little bit. You talked about this for kind of the introduction right there of, why people come to Venture Atlanta, or why they come to these events. And one of the big areas, it seems like, is the coaching and the guidance, because it's really hard to build a business, for one, and it's really hard to do it alone. So the coaching and guidance aspect, let's talk about what an entrepreneur or a CEO at a growing company can expect from a Venture Atlanta.
Sure. So I would say if you're one of our chosen companies, so, we do have open applications, during the year. If you're one of the companies that we select, we actually have 3 rounds of coaching, and they're all managed by investors. And there are companies that have literally gotten connections. I, recall sitting in a coaching one time where someone said, sounds like you need to get connected to Lowe's. Oh, I happen to know the CEO. They made the connection and ended up doing a deal literally from just, brief discussions at Lowe's, at coaching. So, the investors are there to help the entrepreneurs, and they will sit down and have meetings. And it could be, I'm not the right person for this, but I see all the time, but let me connect you with someone else. And, the connections are just unbelievable. And it's unbelievable how, again, there could be a company that's just sitting and it's, hey, I know that they're really a big healthcare investor. Let me go take you over and introduce you. And that kind of stuff just happens all the time. We actually, on our website, have a series of videos called VA Connects. And, one of my, you're probably going to, this is, I'll tell the story really, really, really fast. But one of our companies, Car 360, literally was an alumni company, asked if they could come back when Ernie Garcia from Carvana was speaking. We were completely sold out. They were like, well, stand in the back. They stood in the back, and they basically waited for Ernie Garcia to come out of the bathroom. And they were like, they wanted to show their technology to Ernie Garcia, and he ended up buying the company. So literally that happened at Venture Atlanta. So, as an entrepreneur, you need to be in that room, because that kind of stuff happens all the time.
Well, let's dive into that a little bit further. I love the stories. And it's to your point. So there's the access, there's the guidance and the coaching that you get in terms of the community around it. But there's also, what you're just describing with the Carvana example for Car 3, there's the access to capital. And so I would love to hear, maybe let's start with kind of the trends that you're seeing. I know we talked a little bit about how, you have COVID virtual, now you're in person. Just what are you seeing from a demand and just the trends in the market? And then what should entrepreneurs expect at an event like Venture Atlanta now?
Yeah. So, go back to 2019, we had close to 400 investors there. And, we're definitely expecting to trend in that way this year. The demand last year after COVID was unbeliable. Investors were, clamoring, going, tell me how much it is to come in. And, what we're seeing now is, there was a couple of years where it was just seemed like money was just flowing, and everyone, all they had to do was go, hey, I have a cool company, and you got a deal. Right. And also, perhaps the valuations were insane as well. And valuations in the Southeast have always been a little more, in control than the craziness we see in California. So a lot of the investors have always really liked the companies at Venture Atlanta because they know that, they can do, a solid investment. We've got over 650 alumni companies that have raised over $6.5 billion from Venture Atlanta. So deals happen at Venture Atlanta. They happen outside of Venture Atlanta. But what we're seeing now is that, as much as the entrepreneurs want to be in front of the investors want to know the entrepreneurs. The investors want people to know what their fund does. Everyone doesn't know every fund. And, you've got several large funds, like your NEAs, your Excels, your Insight Partners or whatever, but you got a bunch of other ones that are, deploying capital. One thing we can tell you is that there's money out there. There's plenty of money out there, but, you're going to have to show a little bit more. You may have to actually have some traction and have a customer base and have something, to get that money. But the thing is that Venture Atlanta is providing that platform for, you to be in that room with those funders. And I mean, as far as like what's happening on, in this half of the country, I mean, we have the largest contingent of investors that attend each year.
That's great. And I think as it relates to like registrations, what are you seeing on that side going into this year?
Yeah. So, we do an early bird registration and our numbers were up 40% from last year. So people were, we turned, because of COVID last year, we limited the size of the event. And this year it'll be about 1,000 people. And we are not limiting it, but we are, still controlling it this year. But I think people did a little bit more of, let me make sure I get in. We also have, in relation to investors, almost double the number of funds that are actually sponsors of Venture Atlanta.
Oh, that's great. Well, let's go into kind of the last topic. We talked a little bit about kind of the value of the coaching and guidance that these entrepreneurs can get. We talked a little bit about the access that's available to them. And then you just kind of touched on that when you talk about access, which is, I think it was 650 alumni, 6.5 billion deployed.
Yeah.
So there's this capital that's available, but there's also this alumni, there's this network. So if you were a VA alum, what does that mean? And what does that look like for folks that may be wanting to apply?
So as a Venture Atlanta alumni, we support you, your company forever. So basically, if there's a big success story, a big funding, we've got several vehicles. We've got a great, new website coming out. We do a week in review piece. We do incredible social media posts. So anytime there's a big funding announcement, we'll post it all over, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, everywhere. And I mean, our alumni literally will be like, did you see this? Can you post this? Can you guys post this? Because, our social reach is fantastic. And we do alumni events. We do an alumni dinner that we make as part of Venture Atlanta Week. And the goal of that, Brendan, is that, we want the alumni to continue to have access to those investors. So whether they're, they don't necessarily have to even attend Venture Atlanta to come to that dinner. We certainly want them to, but it's their opportunity to get back in front of the investors and to have that time with them. And that's something we've done for the investors for years. For the alumni, we also do additional alumni events during the year. We've had alumni dinner. So, perhaps 15 CEOs sitting together, almost like a round table, talking about different topics. And we've had speakers come in, and that was pre-COVID, and, we would like to get back into that again. But for us, supporting our alumni is super important. We actually have a new alumni section on our database. So, people can scroll through, see all the alumni of Venture Atlanta, and our alumni actually come full circle and become sponsors and supporters of Venture Atlanta.
I love that. I mean, it's a good reminder. I think, as we come out of COVID, just the importance of community and the value of relationships, and networking feels very transactional, but really what you're describing is it's more than that. It's really kind of like, how do we support one another as opposed to just that transactional exchange? And so it's really powerful to hear that with Venture Atlanta. And I'm sure if our audience is like me, they're really anxious to get involved. So Allison, what's a practical next step that our audience can take as it relates to engaging with you and being a part of this Venture Atlanta story?
Sure. So if you're not on our database, certainly go to our newsletter and go to our website and subscribe. Like I said, we do a week in review piece that really kind of captures what's happening in the tech scene. So, big things that are happening in Atlanta, but other opportunities for for entrepreneurs, and also highlights our alumni companies. So that's one thing. Definitely, engage with us, follow us on LinkedIn, join our Venture Atlanta group on LinkedIn. We're real active there. Follow us on Twitter. So definitely do those things. And also, obviously, I wouldn't be a good CEO if I wasn't saying attend, come to the conference this year. Entrepreneur tickets are $300. And I will tell you that is a third of the price of what other people pay. So, we definitely try to fully support our entrepreneurs. I wish we could charge nothing, but we can't. We got to cover something. But, what that does is that gives you full access to the conference. I mean, that gives you access to the mobile app where the investors are in there. It gives you access to sit down and have lunch with people. You get to go to an investor breakfast. There's a cocktail party. That's the best networking of the event. So, $300, I don't know that you could go to another event. If you're anywhere in the Southeast, you can get in your car, drive, and make it a pretty cheap way to help build your business.
And Allison, remind our audience, what are the dates for that event?
Yeah, that would be good, right? October 19th and 20th. Okay. And we're at the Woodruff Arts Center. So the Woodruff Arts Center is the third largest art center in America. So we're super excited about being there, right behind New York and I think California. And they just actually did $1 million renovation. So we're going to be in a beautiful space this year. And you can register going to ventureatlanta.org.
Great. Well, as a reminder for the audience, October 19th through the 20th, I believe is what you said, yes, at the Woodruff Arts Center in Atlanta. Well, Allison, thank you for your investment in the community. Thank you for what you've created and the opportunities that have been facilitated through Venture Atlanta. I mean, hearing 650 and 6.5 billion, those are big numbers. And I can't imagine what you have in store. I'm sure there are much bigger plans for Venture Atlanta. But again, thank you. And thanks for coming on. It was really fun to connect with you and to learn more about your story.
Thank you for having me, Brendan.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye.
Bye.